I never imagined I'd face such deep humiliation right in the middle of my own sister's engagement celebration. The evening glowed with soft lighting, everyone wore practiced smiles, and her laughter rang out clearly as she casually mentioned that I was just doing paperwork at the local courthouse. Laughter rippled through the group. A glass chimed in a toast. Inside, my heart stung sharply, yet I remained silent as I always had. Then her fiancé turned to me, examining my face as though something about it felt strangely familiar. "So, tell me, what do you really do there?" he asked. I offered no long explanation, no defense. I simply spoke one word. What followed wasn't explosive, chaotic, or theatrical. Yet it forever transformed the way my entire family viewed me. My name is Claire. From my earliest memories, my family has always preferred tidy, easy descriptions, the sort you can drop quickly over dinner without sparking extra questions. My sister Madison was forever the shining star, driven, magnetic, the type who could enter any space and instantly become its center. Meanwhile, I was the reserved one, the dependable one, the one who worked at the courthouse. That simple label trailed me everywhere. Thanksgiving gatherings, birthday parties, even quick catch-up calls with distant relatives I hadn't seen in ages. "So you're still handling admin stuff?" they'd ask with polite smiles, as if showing genuine concern. I'd nod and reply, "Yep, still there." And just like that, the topic would shift. What they never noticed was how deliberately I'd learned to fade into the background around them. Not out of shame, but because whenever I tried to share more, their attention would drift away. Early on, I discovered that my real achievements unsettled people, especially Madison. So I softened everything, blurred the details, and allowed them to hold on to a simpler, smaller image of me. It preserved the harmony. At home, the routine stayed exactly the same. Madison spoke, and everyone hung on her every word. Our parents leaned forward eagerly when she shared career victories, big goals, or exciting updates. When I opened my mouth, silverware scraped against plates, or someone suddenly needed more wine. It wasn't deliberate cruelty, just a long-established pattern, and patterns like that are tough to shatter. Only one family member ever truly saw me for who I was, my cousin Sophie. She picked up on my late nights, the quiet confidence in my posture, the phone notifications coming at unusual times. She understood the reality, even though I never voiced it directly. Occasionally, she'd reach under the table to gently squeeze my hand, a silent reminder that I wasn't invisible to everyone. I kept telling myself I didn't crave their approval, that their views held no real power over me. But that was only partly honest. Each time Madison made a joke about my courthouse desk job, a quiet tension coiled tighter inside me, not rage, not yet, but something deeper, heavier, and more persistent. By the evening of her engagement party, I already sensed exactly how things would unfold. I'd arrive ahead of time, lend a hand wherever needed, offer smiles during introductions, and slip away before anyone realized I'd left. I never anticipated genuine respect or real interest. What I truly never saw coming was a single, direct question that refused to let the comfortable illusion survive even one more second. The celebration was classic Madison, flawless, extravagant, and crafted to dazzle. Twinkling string lights draped the spacious backyard like a golden twilight sky. Pure white blooms filled every corner. A custom banner displaying their names floated high above, almost like it was overseeing the entire event. I showed up early as usual. Before I could even set my bag aside, Mom thrust a pile of napkins into my hands and nodded toward the beverage station. "Could you handle things over there?" she asked, already walking off without waiting for a reply. As guests began to trickle in, I'd already restocked ice twice and polished a spotless counter. I reminded myself it was okay. I was accustomed to this supporting role. Helpful, silent, and unobtrusive. Then Madison made her entrance. She stepped from the car radiating elegance, her engagement ring sparkling as though it had its own personal beam. The crowd instantly surrounded her. Praises poured out. Phones snapped photos. Her fiancé, Ethan, trailed just behind, polished, composed, and effortlessly charming, the kind of man who commanded attention without even trying. He greeted people warmly, expressed thanks, and listened far more than he spoke. At first, he hardly glanced my way. Madison proudly announced how accomplished he was. Major victories, impressive deals, figures that sounded grand, but eventually blurred together. Our parents glowed with pride, as though they'd played a key role in it all. I lingered at the crowd's edge, my untouched champagne in hand, watching the familiar scene replay once more. Then Madison spotted me. "Come over here," she called, beckoning me like an afterthought. "Not everyone's met my sister yet." She slung an arm around me and flashed her brightest smile. "Everyone, this is Claire. She works at the courthouse." A few courteous nods followed. "Just admin stuff," she added with a light laugh. "Keeps everything running smoothly. Answers calls, files papers. You know the drill." Someone chuckled softly. Another offered a knowing smile, as though that explained my entire existence. The familiar warmth crept up my chest again. The old habit urged me to brush it off, stay quiet, let it slide. I stared into my glass and drew a slow breath. This wasn't fresh territory, just amplified. But Ethan didn't join the laughter. He was observing me closely now, his smile softening. His gaze scanned my features, as if piecing together fragments of a puzzle. I caught the brief flicker of uncertainty, the pause that felt out of place. Dinner was called, and we all moved to the long table. I settled at the far end, right where I belonged. Toast rang out. Madison basked in every moment. Then she lifted her glass once more. "Some handle high-stakes cases," she said, nodding toward Ethan. "And others manage the phones." Her eyes darted to me, almost challenging. That's when Ethan swiveled fully in his seat and met my gaze directly. "Hold on," he said carefully. "Claire, what exactly do you do at the courthouse?" The table froze. Every head turned my way. Suddenly, the old story had nowhere left to hide. For a heartbeat, silence reigned, not out of courtesy, but because the question shattered the expected script. It lingered there, raw and uncomfortable, like an exposed nerve. I felt the weight of countless eyes, the pressure of years bearing down. I didn't rush to respond. I glanced at my hands on the table. One thumb slowly circled the edge of my glass. The wood felt smooth and steady beneath my fingers. I could hear the soft buzz of the outdoor lights, the distant clink of dishes from inside. Life went on, even as something fundamental began to shift. In that quiet moment, memories flooded in. Every holiday where I'd been asked to set up, every meal where my career was reduced to a single, safe word. Every occasion I'd chosen silence because it seemed kinder than witnessing disappointment in my parents' eyes. I thought of late nights in my apartment, still in work clothes, reviewing files, preparing for another demanding day, knowing none of it would ever come up in conversation. Then it hit me. I hadn't been shielding them with my quietness. I'd been safeguarding the diminished version they preferred, the one that never threatened their comfort or pride. Across from me, Madison's smile looked forced, her expression tense, as though she sensed the ground moving beneath her. Mom stared at her plate. Dad reached for his drink, then hesitated. Ethan waited patiently, without judgment, simply present. The familiar urge whispered to downplay it, to offer something vague and preserve the peace. But a clearer, stronger feeling rose instead. Not fury, not spite, pure clarity. If I spoke now, the truth would finally breathe. If I stayed quiet, the falsehood would continue, and I'd keep diminishing to accommodate it. I realized this moment wasn't about shaming my sister or proving a point to a group that had rarely asked real questions. It was about refusing to vanish any longer. I sat up a little straighter, gently placed my glass down. The soft clink cut through the hush. My pulse steadied. The fear I'd carried so long finally eased its hold. I looked at Ethan first, then my parents, and finally at Madison. Whatever followed, there would be no returning to the old version of myself. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't force a smile. I didn't elaborate. I simply said one word, judge. It fell gently, almost courteously, but the impact was instant. The atmosphere changed, not with drama, no gasps or outbursts, but as though the constant background hum of the world had been switched off. Talks halted mid-sentence. Utensils hovered in midair. Even the lights seemed to glow brighter in the sudden stillness. For a moment, no one stirred. Mom's face paled so quickly it shocked me. Her lips parted, then sealed again, searching for words she'd never practiced. Dad blinked rapidly, gripping his glass before setting it down with care, as though it might break. Madison let out a sharp, brittle laugh. "Oh, come on," she said, waving dismissively. "That's hilarious." I kept my gaze on Ethan. He hadn't laughed. He hadn't shifted. His expression transformed in a way I knew instantly. Not bewilderment, not irritation, but full recognition clicking into place. He leaned back slowly, studying me anew. "Judge," he repeated softly. Then his eyes widened slightly. "Claire Thompson, the judge at the downtown courthouse." No one breathed. "You presided over my case last year," he continued. "The big corporate litigation. I appeared before you several times." The silence grew thick and undeniable. Madison's smile hardened. "What are you even saying?" she snapped, turning to him. "She's just admin. She handles calls. You've barely met her twice." Ethan didn't glance her way. "I know what administrative work looks like," he said evenly. "And I know what a judge looks like." He turned back to me. "You were impartial, straightforward. No theatrics. You truly listened. That's why you stuck in my mind." Dad finally spoke. "You're a judge." Disbelief saturated his voice. "Since when?" "3 years," I answered calmly. Mom shook her head, as if the concept refused to register. "But you told us you were assisting someone." "I was, at first," I replied. After that, no one ever asked again. That's when the truth began to sink in. Not suddenly, but gradually, painfully. The narrative they'd repeated for years hadn't been challenged, not because it was accurate, but because it was convenient, because it preserved the familiar order they preferred. Madison slid her chair back a fraction, eyes flicking nervously around the table. "This is absurd," she said. "You deliberately let everyone think you were just staff. Who does that?" I met her eyes directly for the first time. "I never lied," I said. "I just stopped correcting the assumption." Her cheeks flushed. "You planned this, to humiliate me on my own engagement night." I shook my head. "You created the moment. I simply answered the question you asked, in front of everyone." She turned to Ethan, voice rising. You knew she was a judge and said nothing." "I didn't connect Judge Thompson to your sister," he replied. "You never mentioned her full name. You never gave her a chance to speak." That statement struck deeper than anything I could have uttered. Reaction spread around the table. My uncle stared at his hands, murmuring quietly. My grandmother reached over and gently clasped my wrist. "I always sensed it," she whispered. "You carried yourself with a quiet strength." Madison stood abruptly, her chair scraping harshly against the patio stones. "This is my night," she said, voice trembling. "And you've destroyed it. You always manage to steal the spotlight." I remained seated. Calmly, I replied, "Until you turned me into a punchline in front of your fiancé and our family. That wasn't an accident. That was intentional." Her mouth opened, then shut. For once, she had no quick retort. Ethan rose slowly. "Madison," he said gently. She cut him off. "Don't. You're supposed to support me." "I'm on the side of honesty," he answered. "And I can't believe I overlooked how you spoke about your own sister." That was the breaking point. Not with noise or fury, but completely. Madison glanced around and realized the center of gravity had shifted. The attention she always commanded no longer belonged to her. No one laughed. No one rushed to her defense. Even our parents sat motionless, torn between the daughter they'd always celebrated and the one they'd overlooked. "This is unbelievable," she whispered. "So now you think you're superior?" I shook my head. "No, I just stopped pretending to be lesser." She stared at me for a long moment, raw vulnerability flashing behind her anger. Then she spun and walked inside, her heels clicking sharply like final words. Ethan paused, looking at me. Conflict and respect mingled in his eyes. "I need to speak with her," he said quietly. I nodded. After they departed, the table remained hushed. Champagne grew flat. Food sat untouched. Mom finally reached for my hand. "Why didn't you ever tell us?" she asked, her voice fragile. I didn't pull away. Every time I tried to be truly seen, I said, "You turned your gaze elsewhere." No one contradicted me. In that peaceful quiet, An unfamiliar sensation settled in my chest. Not victory, relief. As though I'd finally released a burden I'd carried for years and discovered I no longer needed to lift it again. The next morning, I woke to a silent phone and an unexpected serenity. No anxiety, no mental replay of the night, just warm sunlight filtering through the blinds and the gentle rhythm of the city beyond my window. Then the messages began. Missed calls, lengthy texts, awkward but heartfelt apologies. Relatives suddenly eager to reconnect. My parents left a couple of voicemails. I let them sit. Around noon, a knock came at my door. It was Ethan. He looked exhausted, as though sleep had escaped him, replaced by heavy reflection. We sat at opposite ends of the couch, untouched coffee between us. He offered no excuses, no defense of her actions. I can't unsee it now, he said. The way she spoke to you. The way everyone allowed it. I nodded. There was nothing more to add. I don't know yet what this means for us, he admitted. But I can't pretend it didn't happen. When he left, the apartment felt brighter. Not hollow, just truthful. A few days later, Madison appeared without warning. No makeup, hair tied back. The unguarded version she never showed at family events. We didn't embrace. We didn't argue. I was terrified, she confessed at last, of seeming ordinary. Of coming in second. I believed her. I'm not here to outshine you, I told her. I never was. She nodded slowly, as though hearing it truly for the first time. We didn't instantly become best friends. Nothing healed overnight. But the foundation had shifted. My parents began asking real questions, and actually listening to the answers. Sophie smiled at me across dinner tables, and for the first time, I felt no urge to justify myself. I once believed that staying silent equaled kindness. I was mistaken. Silence didn't shield anyone. It simply showed others how small they could make me feel. The truth is simple. You never owe anyone a reduced version of yourself just to maintain harmony. If you've ever hidden your true accomplishments so others could stay comfortable, know you're not alone. Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story touched you deeply, consider subscribing. You deserve to be fully seen.